Quick headlines before the intro. Today is June 14th, and this is the Daily AI Desk, not the emergency cut. First, Anthropic says it complied with a U.S. government request connected to Fable 5 and Mythos 5, while reporting from Axios says the company had a very short window to restrict access. Second, the Associated Press reports that OpenAI is facing a multi-state probe into possible user harm connected to ChatGPT, with attention on minors, vulnerable users, and safety safeguards. Third, the quieter enterprise story is just as important. OpenAI is pushing workplace AI training. Anthropic is pushing Claude into regulated industries. GitHub is tightening Copilot code review controls and runner requirements. Hugging Face and AI 2 are building open review and evaluation infrastructure. The big theme today is simple: AI is leaving the demo stage and entering the control stage. Access, safety, trust, infrastructure, and accountability are now the story.
Powered by artificial intelligence.
The top weekend story is Anthropic's Fable 5 and Mythos 5 access shock. The careful wording matters here. Anthropic's own public statement says it received a U.S. government request, complied with it, and is seeking clarity. It also says the company supports blocking unsafe deployment of frontier models when the process is transparent, fair, clear, and technically grounded. That is the company statement. The government order itself was not publicly available for this script, so anything about the internal timeline is treated as reporting, not as a primary document. Axios reports that Anthropic had about 90 minutes to act after the Trump administration demand. That is a huge claim because it changes the story from ordinary export control debate into emergency governance. If a frontier model can be switched off or restricted at that speed, users and companies have to think differently about model availability. A paid model is not just a product anymore. It may also be a regulated capability, and access can become a national security question overnight. Why does this one model story matter so much? Because Fable and Mythos were not positioned as ordinary chatbot upgrades. Anthropic's announcement put Fable 5 in a Mythos class tier, above its older top-end public model positioning. It also described Mythos 5 as targeted to a smaller group of cyber defenders and infrastructure providers. That framing tells you the pressure point: powerful reasoning, long autonomous work, cyber-relevant capability, and high-value enterprise use. The restriction debate is not only about one company. It is about whether frontier models are software products, strategic assets, dual-use tools, or all three at the same time. If governments decide that certain capabilities require nationality, licensing, or trusted user gates, then frontier AI starts looking less like normal SaaS and more like controlled advanced infrastructure. That has consequences for researchers, international employees, startups, universities, and companies that build on top of US AI providers. The second major story is OpenAI's safety scrutiny. The Associated Press reports that multiple U.S. states are investigating possible user harm tied to ChatGPT. Business Insider reports that the coalition is looking at the impact on young users and vulnerable adults, including questions around data handling, engagement, mental health risk, and whether the safety features are enough. OpenAI's statement, as reported, says today's ChatGPT includes a more protective experience for minors and people in difficult situations, with safeguards that direct people to real-world resources and trusted human contacts. This story sits right next to the Anthropic story. One is national security. The other is consumer safety. Together they say the same thing: frontier AI companies are no longer being judged only by benchmark charts. They are being judged by how their systems behave when people are distressed, confused, young, malicious, dependent, or operating at scale. The safety layer is becoming a regulatory layer. The hard question for OpenAI and every major AI company is no longer simply, can the model answer? The question is, when should the system answer, when should it refuse, when should it slow down, when should it redirect, and when should a human support path come into the loop? That is much harder than a benchmark because it involves real people, real risk, and messy context. For viewers, the practical takeaway is not to panic. It is to understand the direction of travel. Consumer AI products are being pushed toward age-aware design, distress detection, parental controls, real-world resource routing, data handling transparency, and clear reliability. Some users will see that as necessary safety. Others will see it as friction, surveillance, or overreach. The product teams cannot avoid the trade-off anymore. The choice is now visible. Now the enterprise story. Anthropic announced a partnership with TCS to bring Claude into regulated industries. Anthropic says TCS will provide Claude to 50,000 employees across 56 countries, and will build Claude-powered offerings for industries including financial services, healthcare, public services, aviation, telecom, manufacturing, retail, and life sciences. This is not flashy demo news, but it may matter more than a benchmark screenshot. Regulated industries do not adopt AI by just buying seats. They need permissions, audit trails, data boundaries, workflow design, security review, procurement, and training. TCS brings implementation muscle. Anthropic brings the model layer. The message to the market is that serious AI adoption now lives inside integration work, not just chat windows. The companies that can make AI boring, governable, and useful inside old systems may win more durable revenue than the companies that only win launch day attention. Anthropic also released its first public record survey, and this is one of the cleanest trust signals of the week. Anthropic says it surveyed 51,993 Americans, weighted to U.S. Census benchmarks. The hopeful side is real. Many people ranked curing diseases like cancer or Alzheimer's among their top hopes, and helping people with disabilities was another major positive. But the fear side is loud. AI-induced job loss was the top fear in every state, held by 64% of Americans. More than 70% said government should play a role in regulating AI. And only 15% said they trust AI companies to decide how AI should be developed and used. That number is the headline. The public can believe AI is powerful and still not trust the companies building it to govern themselves. That is the gap every product launch is now walking into. OpenAI's Academy update is the quieter counterweight to all the policy heat. OpenAI introduced courses around AI foundations, applied AI foundations, and agents and workflows. That sounds like training content, but the strategic point is bigger. Companies have learned that handing employees a chatbot does not automatically create productivity. People need examples, boundaries, repeatable workflows, review habits, and a sense of when the model should not be trusted. The course ladder is revealing. First, understand the basics. Then apply AI to actual workplace tasks. Then learn how to direct agents and workflows. That is where the market is heading. The next adoption bottleneck is not only whether models get smarter. It is whether teams can use them without creating confusion, security risk, bad decisions, or low-quality output. AI fluency is becoming basic workplace infrastructure. GitHub's Copilot code review update is a perfect example of AI moving from feature to control layer. GitHub says organizations can configure whether Copilot code review runs on standard GitHub-hosted runners, self-hosted runners, or larger runners. Admins can set a default runner type and lock it so repositories cannot override it. GitHub also says content exclusions now apply to Copilot code review, which matters for sensitive folders, generated files, vendor code, or anything a company does not want pulled into review context. The important part is that this is not about making the AI sound smarter. It is about where the AI runs, what it is allowed to see, and what instructions govern its behavior. That is what mature AI tooling looks like. The future of AI coding is not just autocomplete. It is policy-aware review, controlled execution, and repository-level context that humans can inspect. GitHub's self-hosted runner enforcement sounds like maintenance news, but it belongs in an AI daily video because modern AI workflows ride on CI infrastructure. GitHub says its rebuilt Actions backend handles more than 120 million jobs per day and lets enterprises start 7 times more jobs per minute than before. Now it is resuming minimum version enforcement for self-hosted runners. To register or re-register, runners need version 2.329.0 or later. To keep executing jobs, they need new runner releases within 30 days. There are brownout windows and then enforcement deadlines. The takeaway is blunt: if your company is building AI review, test generation, agentic development, security scans, or deployment checks on top of Actions, old runner fleets can break the AI workflow. Infrastructure hygiene is now part of AI hygiene. On the open source side, Hugging Face released Serge, a GitHub native AI code reviewer. The idea is simple: maintainers can call Serge in a pull request, it reads the diff, applies repository-owned review policy, and returns a review that a human can publish or edit. That human-editable handoff matters. Good AI review should help maintainers, not flood projects with low-signal machine comments. AI2's olmo-eval attacks the evaluation layer. It extends the OLM standard into a workbench for model development, with support for agentic and multi-turn evaluation, normalized experiment records, and pairwise model comparison. Together, Serge and olmo-eval show what OpenAI infrastructure is becoming: not just model weights, but review process, evaluation records, reproducibility, and policy that developers can inspect. That is a healthier direction for the ecosystem. Here is the watch list. First, watch the Anthropic restriction. The big questions are whether access is restored, whether the restriction narrows to specific risk categories, whether a licensing path appears, and whether other labs change how they launch frontier models. Second, watch the OpenAI safety probe. If state attorneys general push hard, consumer AI products may be forced to explain more clearly how they handle minors, distress signals, data retention, engagement design, and escalation to human help. Third, watch enterprise AI controls. OpenAI Academy, Anthropic and TCS, GitHub Copilot controls, runner enforcement, Serge, and olmo-eval all point in the same direction. The next serious AI wave is not only about the biggest model. It is about who can make AI useful, governable, auditable, and safe enough to run inside real organizations. That is today's desk. Full sources are in the description, and every claim is tied back to the receipt file.